Joining me on the live line right now, and it's a blessing that he is able to join us and offer a lot of insight on it. It is Mark Rienzi. He's the president and CEO of the Becket Fund, and he is counsel, the lawyer in this case for these nuns. Mark, you're live on News Radio 930 WBEN. Thanks for joining me.
Great to be here, Stefan.
So, Mark, can you just give us the 30,000-foot view right now of exactly what your lawsuit is, how important it is, and what New York State is trying to do just terrible to these poor nuns?
Sure. New York State is trying to force even religious institutions and people who object and don't want any part of assisted suicide. New York is trying to drag them into the death process, force them to counsel their patients about the benefits of killing themselves, force them to offer help killing themselves, force them to find other doctors who will do it if you won't do it yourself. The state is really trying to take its desire to have people commit suicide at the end of their lives and force and drag religious institutions into that process. And New York says it's doing this in the name of choice and patient autonomy. But what they're really doing is they're taking away choices from millions of people, because there's a whole lot of people in the world who, on their worst day, when they get a terrible diagnosis, don't really want the doctor to end with, but you could just kill yourself now. But New York's basically trying to make sure everybody gets that advice on their worst day. And the Carmelite Sisters, along with a bunch of other orders of sisters, the Dominicans, the Little Sisters of the Poor, the Benedictines, and some other Catholic groups are fighting back. And they're saying they get to make these decisions within their healthcare institutions. They get to love people like Jesus, which is what they set out to do. And the government can't dictate how they deliver their care.
And Mark, what is the status right now pertaining to the lawsuit that you filed? What's going to happen in the next few days, and what's going to happen potentially when this law kicks in?
Yeah, so we filed the lawsuit on Friday, and this week we'll be asking the judge for an emergency order saying that we don't have to follow this new assisted suicide mandate, and we don't have to be part of convincing people to kill themselves. And we're going to ask the judge to issue that order right away, because the law takes effect on August 5th. There is no world where these nuns are going to start doing what Albany's telling them to do. In other words, there is no world where the Catholic entities start saying, we're going to help you kill yourself. They're not going to do that. And it's really preposterous for New York State to try to make them. And so we're asking for an order from a federal court that there is a constitution and there are constitutional rights, and New York has to obey them. And New York can't single out the disabled and say they don't get protected like the rest of us.
How sick is it? How sick is it, Mark, that New York State, number one, implemented this law, this assisted suicide law? Because think about it. Isn't there such a horrible slippery slope here? And I'm sure it's happening in Canada. I'm sure it's happening in Europe and other nations, where someone walks into their doctor, hey, I've got a hangnail. You know what? I'm a little depressed today. Can you give me a pill to kill myself? I mean, isn't New York State basically asking nuns, these amazing nuns, the Carmelite Sisters for the Aged and Infirm, aren't they basically trying to force these nuns to take that position?
Yeah, they really are. So there's two things in there. One, the slope is absolutely slippery. And we know that because you can see it in Canada and you can see it elsewhere in the world. It always starts with, oh, this is just people who are about to die. And that's bad enough. Those people shouldn't be encouraged to kill themselves either. But it starts with, well, this is just compassion for a few people who are just about to die. But it never stays there. It always gets advanced over time. And it is truly outrageous for New York, in the name of freedom and choice and autonomy, to basically force people who don't want any part of this to be part of it. And there are millions of patients, right? This is true for me. This would be true if I were putting a loved one in a home. There's millions of people who actually don't want to be offered the chance to kill themselves at their lowest moment. But New York is trying to make it impossible for anyone to die in their state without getting that offer. And it's really bad because they're targeting people based on their disability, which also violates, forget the religion parts, but it violates federal law. States are not allowed to treat disabled people differently, and not allowed to deny them the protection that everybody else in society gets. But that's what New York is doing. If somebody offered you or I or anyone else who's not doesn't have a terminal diagnosis. If they offered us the chance to kill ourselves, New York makes that a crime, right? That's manslaughter. It's against the law to aid and assist somebody in killing themselves. But they take away that protection just for our most vulnerable and needy brothers and sisters. And it's awful, it's wrong, it's illegal, and it's not going to stand.
And you're listening to Mark Rienzi. He is the president and CEO of the Becket Fund, and he is the lead counsel in this case for the Carmelite Sisters for the Aged and Infirm. Mark, I want to ask about them. First question, can you share with our listeners how passionate these nuns are about providing dignity in death and how much they care for their patients, especially at their time of need, literally right on death's door? How loving and caring are they when it comes to their mission of caring for those who are about to pass on?
Sure, I would love to. So the Carmelites are a Catholic order that's almost 100 years old, and they started back in 1929 when Mother Angeline felt a call to help the elderly and to make sure that they don't feel alone and frightened at the end of their lives. And so the Carmelites have been caring for New York's elderly and dying population for almost 100 years. And like many of the other orders in this case, they view it as their job to love that person in front of them like he or she is Jesus Christ, and that God views all of these people as having equal dignity and equal worth, and that their lives should not be hastened to an end. That's not for us to decide. And so the Carmelites just love people who need it, and they take care of people to the very end of their lives, and they go with them on that journey. But they love these people. They can't help kill these people. And they think that when someone gets a terminal diagnosis, the right answer is to give them love and respect and dignity, not tell them, hey, you could just kill yourself and save yourself the trouble. And, I'm not surprised that our governments sometimes think encouraging people to kill themselves is a good thing. I wouldn't be surprised if insurance companies might say, gosh, it's cheaper if people just kill themselves than having to treat them. But I don't think free people should accept that path. And they certainly shouldn't accept the idea that the government gets to decide there's one and only one way to do it, and we're going to outlaw anybody who's got a different approach. No matter whether you think assisted suicide is good or bad or right or wrong, every decent person should think that the government shouldn't be forcing unwilling people to be part of it. You can believe in freedom and believe people should have the choice, but I can't imagine any decent person thinking we should force unwilling people to be part of it.
Mark, how are the nuns holding up? I cannot imagine the level of stress, or maybe not. On the exact opposite of the spectrum, they could be saying, you know what? We've devoted our lives to Christ. We've devoted our lives to caring and loving others. And you know what? We're going to put our faith in the Lord, and we're going to care for people. So,
you know what? It's the latter. I'm sure it's stressful, but these sisters have deep faith. They have committed their lives to following God's will, and they devote themselves day and night to loving and caring for people and to doing what God wants them to do. So they are as steady human beings as you could be. Anybody who meets these sisters, the right response anytime I walk out of a meeting with any of them is man, I want to be more like them. And I think that's probably what everybody feels. And so I'm sure they find it stressful. It's always stressful to be in litigation, but they've got deep faith. They know God takes care of them, and they know the law's on their side. So they're going to be great.
And they've never asked, hey, what's your political backing? Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Before they care for someone in their dying days. And yet it seems as though obviously New York State is taking that opposite approach and making this issue incredibly hyper-partisan and hyper-political for a group of nuns who just want to fulfill Christ's mission of using the gifts and love and talents that they have to love and serve others. So isn't it just mind-blowing, Mark, that...
Yeah, you got it. These sisters don't care for you because you're Catholic or not Catholic, or because you've got their views on anything or not. You have to be dying and poor to be cared for by these nuns. You have to be dying and need help. That's all you need. If you're a human being and you're in that bad situation, these sisters are opening their doors and they're loving you like family. So these sisters, they don't discriminate. They love, and they just try to take care of people. And look, in any decent society, we should all be able to, no matter what else you disagree on, we should all be able to agree, yeah, I want there to be loving nuns who care for people as they're dying. That is a good thing, no matter what your religious beliefs are. That's a good thing, and it's a bad and frankly, preposterous thing for the state of New York to be attacking it.
But what's preposterous too, Mark, is that actually looking at the letter of the law, this Medical Aid and Dying Act, New York could actually imprison. I mean, refusal to go along with it, they can they can be fined, lose licenses, and even time behind bars. How sick and disgusting and disturbing is it that New York State could, if they so choose, actually toss these nuns in prison for not going along with this act?
Well, we're going to fight tooth and nail so we never get to that point. But sure, state governments have all sorts of powers, and they like to force people to do what they want. And that's unfortunately the way state government power often goes. But thankfully, the state statutes that give them lots of power, they're not the highest law. God is the highest law, but on earth and in America, the Constitution is the highest man-made law we got, and federal law also trumps state law. So there's a lot of bad stuff the state could threaten to do, but the fact of the matter is it's not legal for them to do that, and no one's going to let them do it. So it's a bad story, but it's one that we think we're going to vanquish. And there's no way these nuns are not going to kneel to Albany. That's not going to happen.
Thank God. And then last question for you, buddy. Mark, take me through what happens one more time on Friday. How soon do you hope to have a ruling from a legal perspective? What's going to happen?
This week, we're going to ask a federal judge to issue an emergency order at some point before August 5th, because August 5th is the day the law takes effect, and that's the day that New York thinks it can start forcing these nuns to compromise their care and to follow Albany's orders instead of God's. So we're going to ask for an emergency order. We're going to ask that it be issued before August 5th so that the sisters have protection and can keep on giving, New York's most vulnerable people the kind of loving care they've been doing for a long time.
Well, I appreciate you fighting the good fight on their behalf. God bless you. And if, regardless of your faith, I mean, I'm Catholic, so you better believe I'm going to say a rosary for these nuns and for your legal fight. But for anyone out there in New York State with a heart conscience or someone of faith, regardless of what it is, certainly you'll be in a lot of people's thoughts and prayers, especially these nuns, for the amazing work that you do. You've got my contact information, Mark. Just do me a favor, whatever happens, shoot me a text or give me a ring, and we'll let our listeners know what the status is.
Be happy to do it. Thank you for the prayers. We appreciate it.
All right. God bless you. Thank you so much for joining us. That is Mark Rienzi. He is the president and CEO of the Becket Fund and legal counsel for these sisters.